Hello, and welcome to our video on using the new Band-in-a-Box for Mac DAW plugin in Ableton Live. With Band-in-a-Box 2019 for Mac, we introduced a plugin that accesses all of the real tracks, real drums, and other content in Band-in-a-Box, but can be used right inside your favorite DAW without having to open up the actual Band-in-a-Box application. The plugin comes free with the purchase of Band-in-a-Box, and the plugin installs automatically when you install the main program. In this video, we're going to have a look at the various ways you can use this amazing plugin in Ableton Live. If you use a different DAW, we have other videos that demonstrate it in many other DAWs such as GarageBand, Logic, Reaper, FL Studio, and more. First, we'll look at a quick and easy way to get started using the plugin. We'll also go through some of the technical aspects such as preferences in Ableton and some of the settings within the plugin. And then we'll look at different ways you can use the plugin, including using it for live performance. And throughout the video, I'm going to try and use a variety of different Band-in-a-Box styles so you can get a sense of some of the different genres, grooves, and tempos we cover. Whether you're into jazz, rock, country, R&B, or any styles you can think of, there's something in Band-in-a-Box for you. Right now, we're listening to some great funk tracks playing in Ableton that we created with the plugin. Everything that you're hearing right now in Ableton Live was created by the Band-in-a-Box plugin, simply by typing in these chords, and you can enter any chords in any key. Then we picked this funk style and generated the tracks. I'm going to go back in time a little bit to show you just how we got these great sounding tracks. We're going to start with a blank Ableton Live project. A blank Ableton Live project includes 2 MIDI tracks and 2 audio tracks. The Band-in-a-Box plugin is an instrument plugin, so I'll go to Plugins in the browser, then drag the Band-in-a-Box plugin to the first MIDI track. So this is the Band-in-a-Box plugin. It's sizable, so I'll make it a bit bigger. And now we have a blank chord chart. This area here is for different instruments in the style, and it's currently blank because we don't have a style loaded yet. Here's where you can pick a style. Here you can set various musical elements such as the key, time signature, etc. And there's a spot for a song title, and various menus we'll look at later. What we basically need to do in order to get some tracks is pick a style and enter some chords, but not necessarily in that order, so I'll enter the chord progression first. I'll do it in the key of G, and I'll start entering some chords. G7 at bar 1, and I'll leave that for 4 bars. Maybe B flat 7 sus at bar 5, and C7 at bar 7. And I'll use a handy shortcut, K8, to copy the last 8 bars. I'll also add a part marker at bar 9 to fill out the form, and that means that the drums will play a fill in the bar right before the part marker. At bar 17, I'll add a part marker as well, but I'll click a second time to make it a B marker, which means the drums will change what they're playing at that part. And I'll enter A minor, then D minor at bar 19, A minor at bar 21 again, and then D7 at bar 23. I think that's good. I'll change some of the elements up here. I'll make the end bar 24, and I'll actually end on a G chord. And I'll change the choruses to 4, so this entire song will repeat 4 times. So now we can select a style. So here is a list of all the Band-in-a-Box styles available. You can see there's over 6,000 to choose from, and in this list, you can just double click on any style in the list to hear a sample of what it will sound like. So for example, if I filter the list by jazz, I could sample some jazz styles. Or some rock styles. or even some country styles. But I think the progression I entered would be very suited for some funk styles, so I'll filter by funk. And I love this lash out style. You'll notice that in this column, it shows the ideal tempo for the style, which for this one is 110 beats per minute. That does not mean you have to use it at that tempo though, but if it's somewhat close to that, you'll get the best result. So I'll pick that style. And I'll pick a tempo that's faster than the sample we heard in the style picker. 130 beats per minute. And I'll set that in the plugin as well. When you first add the plugin, it takes the tempo from the DAW, but since we changed it in the DAW, we need to change it in the plugin. So now we're ready to generate the parts, and there are some custom generation options in this menu. But right now, I just want all the tracks generated normally, so I'll press the top generate button, and now it's creating the tracks. You'll notice that right now there are some green squares and a blue square in this area, and those squares are empty. When the tracks are ready, those squares will be filled in. The generation does take a little bit of time, so I'll skip ahead in the video. So now it's finished, and the squares are now filled in with waveform icons, meaning that they are ready to drag into the DAW. Before we do that, we can sample these tracks by pressing play up here. We can now drag them into the DAW, which can be done individually or as a group. Here I'll show you dragging the bass by itself. But I'll undo that so I can show you importing them as a group by dragging the blue icon and holding down the command key. And now we have these tracks right in our DAW. And during playback, the chord chart also highlights the current playing bar. This is a great tool if you want to record your own tracks over top of this. So you can now mix the tracks, add effects, or anything you like. And as with all real drums and real tracks, these are real instruments played by real musicians. These are not individually sampled notes, these are actual performances by some of the top studio musicians in the world, able to play over any chord progression in any key you enter. This particular style features Alex Al, one of the most sought after bass players in LA. And on guitar, Bob Lanzetti. Baritone guitar, Mark Lettieri. And drummer Sput Seawright, all of whom were a major part of the New York funk and fusion scene. I'll do a few similar but quicker examples like this, with a few different styles so you can get a sense of the scope of what you can do with the Band-in-a-Box plugin. Here I'm typing in some chords, like I did before, but this time I'll pick a hard rock style. Setting the tempo and generating the tracks. Now I'm dragging them in, and I've got some great hard rock tracks in my project. Here I'm typing in some chords, picking a bluegrass style, and generating the tracks. Dragging them in, and I've got some great bluegrass tracks in my project. In addition to typing in the chords, you can also just open an actual Band-in-a-Box song file. Either files you've created right in the Band-in-a-Box app, or files someone has sent you, or even demos that come with Band-in-a-Box. I'm going to open a Band-in-a-Box song file that features a country style that includes a soloist by the amazing Nashville legend Johnny Highland. So now we have the entire thing entered for us: the chord progression, key, form, etc. So I'll generate the tracks, and I'll drag them in, and here's a great country style with Johnny Highland soloing over the changes. And of course, in addition to opening Band-in-a-Box files, you can also save anything you enter here as a Band-in-a-Box file as well. I'll do the same file open thing, loading a song that features legendary Alex Acuna on drums, as well as the amazing Ramon Stagnaro on guitar. I'll generate, drag the tracks in, and here it is playing. So now we will have a quick look at the Preferences dialog within the plugin. Let's load up the plugin again and check out some of the settings within the plugin. At the top, we can choose our language if we have any of the international language patches installed. In the rendering section of the preferences, there are various options for your renders. For the master mix, you can choose to render a flat mix, a dry mix, and a center pan mix. On the right, you can choose options like normalizing, acidizing, and padding for multi-riffs. The multi-riff padding puts blank space on either side of the audio. You can also choose to allow multi-riffs to start early and end late, notify when generations are complete, and auto-generate loaded songs instead of waiting for you to click generate. And here, we can clear all render files. Below, we have our folder location preferences. This area allows you to specify Band-in-a-Box program, real tracks, real drums, and save tracks locations. Usually, you want to leave these as they are automatically set. There is likely no reason this would need to be changed, but if they were pointing to an incorrect location, it would appear in red, and pressing the Find Folders button would set it correctly automatically. You can also set these locations manually by pressing the Select button. At the bottom of the preferences, you'll find the DAW settings, where you can change the host DAW. This is also set automatically and should be correct already, but you can change it if it's wrong. You can also choose whether you would like bar highlighting in the chord sheet. Typically, when you go to add a plugin, it should automatically appear as an option in Ableton Live, as we saw earlier, simply by clicking on plugins in the browser section and dragging the Band-in-a-Box plugin to a MIDI track. If it doesn't show up automatically, just go to the Ableton's Preferences, select the Plugins tab, turn on Use VST3 Plugin System Folders, and use audio units, and now you can see here that the plugins are now available. Another option that you should be sure to disable in Ableton Live is Auto Warp Long Samples. Go to the Record Warp Launch tab and turn this feature off. When this feature is enabled, Ableton will try to remove the count-in silence and your Band-in-a-Box tracks will be misaligned. Now let's check out some other ways we can use the plugin within Ableton. What I'm going to do is create some blues tracks. To start with, it will be just like the other examples we saw earlier, but after those tracks are made, I'm going to start adding more tracks. So here I am typing a straight ahead blues in E. E7, A7, E7, A7, E7, B7, A7, E7. And I'll have it repeat 6 times. And like before, I'll load a style. And I know we've just added new styles that feature Blues Guitar Whiz Saul Philcox. So I'm going to show all styles that have Saul Philcox playing on them. And I'll sort by date so the newest ones will be at the top of the list. and I'll sample a few. And those all sound good, but I really like this messin' around funky blues, so I'll pick that. I'll generate the tracks, and I'll drag them in. And let's listen to a bit. And now you'll notice in the plugin, there are the green and blue squares for the audio, but on the other side, there are also yellow squares with little eighth notes in them. This means that for these tracks, there is MIDI available. For the guitars and basses, this is mostly just useful for notation. But for the piano, this could actually be very useful right in our project. Ableton Live has some really cool instrument options built right in, so I'm going to add a new instrument, this electric piano. And I'm going to drag the piano MIDI from the Band-in-a-Box plugin onto that track. Now I'll play a little bit with that electric piano soloed, and play with the settings to get a cool sound for our song. Now I want to try and see if I can add a bit more of a modern flavor with a loop. Maybe I can find a hip-hop loop that will work. Like everything else in Band-in-a-Box, when trying to find the right instrument and part, just double-click to sample. And this one might be really cool. So I'll generate just the loop, I'll drag it in, and that sounds pretty cool. Ableton Live is known as a great DAW for live performance, so I'd like to show you how to use the Band-in-a-Box plugin for live performance in the final section of this video. In this example, we will use Band-in-a-Box instruments in the session view window and create a live composition that allows you to switch between chords whenever you want. Once the song is done, you can simply switch to the ending. The first step is to switch to session view. You will see that the tracks are side by side like they are in a mixer instead of in a stack. For each track, you can load multiple audio files. Each row is referred to as a scene. Let's open the Band-in-a-Box plugin by going to Plugins in the Browser section and dragging it to the first instrument track. I'm going to load a style called Baby Blue that has a modern pop sound. The next step is to disable the endings. This will allow us to create the proper loops for the instruments. Next, I'm going to adjust the ending bar to 5 and choruses to 1. We want 4 bar loops, but we need an extra bar for reasons I will explain later. Now let's enter a C chord in the chord sheet at bar 1 and hit the generate button. The generation is complete, so I'm going to hold the command key and drag from the blue rectangle to the first row or scene in the session view. This will spread the audio files over several tracks. Now we just need to repeat that process for a few more chords. I'll replace the C chord at bar 1 with an A minor, generate, and drop the files onto a new row by holding the command key. And now I'll do the same for F, and then with G. No song is complete without an ending, so let's create one. Enable endings again, and change the end bar to 1. Put a C chord at the ending bar and generate again. Now drag those audio files to a new row, or scene. Okay, so we're done with the Band-in-a-Box plugin for now. We're going to label the rows or scenes and make some quick edits in Ableton Live. and then we'll be ready for our live performance. First, I'll name the rows based on the chords that they use. C chord, A minor chord, F chord, G chord, C ending. Before, I said I'd explain why we rendered 5 bars instead of 4, and here's why. When you don't generate an ending in the Band-in-a-Box plugin, the last bar just has a chord hit, and we don't want that. So we'll double-click on an audio file and use the clip view to adjust the loop start location to bar 3, where the audio actually starts, and the length to 4 bars instead of 5. I'll do this for all the audio files except for the ending ones. Now it's time to edit the ending audio files. First of all, disable looping, because we don't want the ending to play more than once. Finally, change the start to bar 4, because that's where the ending starts in our audio files. What we have created is a very powerful live performance tool. Simply click the play button beside C chord to start playback for that chord with all instruments. It will loop for as long as you want. Then try switching to A minor, and it will do so right on the beat. Now try F, then G, and then when you're done, click on the ending to end the song. You can play the chords in any order you want for as long as you want. You can even remove instruments to change the arrangement. Or start with a bass and bring the other instruments in. If you want to get real fancy, you can even create your own slash chords. For instance, I will loop the C chord for the drums, piano, guitar, and synthesizer, and I will change the bass notes. Once you've gotten the hang of this, you can even hit the record button and record a song arrangement by triggering the parts you want. Then it will show up in the arrangement view. Thanks for watching our Band-in-a-Box for Mac DAW plugin tutorial demonstrated in Ableton Live. Have fun!